Hi, I'm Joanne Caldwell, 54 years old, no husband, no kids, and living my so-called peaceful life alone in my oceanfront paradise on Longboat Key, Florida. A home I bought with one goal, that no one in this world could ever take anything from me again. That Friday night I finished dinner like always, alone. Fork down, glass empty, ocean wind against the window. Silence until my doorbell sliced right through it. I opened the door and there they were. My whole family. No warning, no text, no call. Just there. My parents, my younger sister Courtney, her husband Blake, and 3 giant suitcases rolling into my foyer like they were checking into a 5-star resort that I apparently ran. Blake and I are taking the master on the East Wing, Courtney announced, kicking off her sandals like she'd stepped foot into her own vacation home. He needs the sunrise view for his morning routine. They didn't ask. They just claimed rooms, space, chairs, wine, all without blinking. Blake slid himself into the head of the dining table, my father's old spot, poured the expensive Cabernet I'd been saving, and swirled it like the king of Longboat Key. You know you're sitting on a gold mine, he bragged, pointing his glass toward the sea outside. This stretch alone, 8 figures. Easy. There's opportunity here, Joanne, strategic monetization. Courtney tucked herself against him lovingly, her voice sugar-sweet and poison-sharp. We were thinking, you barely use all this space. Why not carve off the North Acre? Blake will handle everything. The commission alone could help Mom and Dad for years. Dad nodded like Blake had solved world hunger. It's not like you've got kids to leave it to, he added, smiling as if that wasn't a knife. The air disappeared from the room. I smiled anyway, the kind of smile that cracks before it breaks. I'll think about it, I said. Everyone knew that meant no. Courtney rolled her eyes. Blake told her to drop it. And then they casually continued mapping out Christmas parties and office spaces in my home. When they were too deep in their fantasies to notice, I slipped outside, bare feet sinking into cold sand, waves roaring like my pulse. I stood there staring at the dark horizon, remembering the day I signed divorce papers and bought this house to finally breathe without someone standing on my chest. Tonight my chest felt crushed again. By the time I came back inside, they were already asleep, in rooms they'd taken without asking. The house had never felt so invaded. But I didn't lose sleep. Because at 4 a.m. my alarm jolted through the darkness, and I was already awake. Courtney wanted a 5 a.m. breakfast. Fine. She'd get a wake-up call she'd never forget. I cooked like a personal chef with a vengeance, fresh fruit, garlic sourdough, soft-boiled eggs, Colombian beans ground fresh, white linen napkins folded crisp. And finally, the crown jewel. Extra-strength morning cleanse tea, 6 tea bags in one pot. Harmless until it was. At 5 a.m. sharp, Blake thundered down the stairs with Courtney floating behind him, silk pajamas shining like entitlement. My parents waddled in, yawning and complaining like they owned rights to the oxygen inside my home. Courtney filled a giant mug of tea without asking a single question. This tastes so healthy, she said, absolutely clueless. Dad joked, if it keeps me regular, I'm in. Oh, he would be. 40 minutes later. Blake groaned first, a small sound before he shot out of his chair, and sprinted to the bathroom like his life depended on it. Courtney laughed until her eyes went wide and she ran, screaming my name like I betrayed her. Mom and Dad were next. Sweating, gasping, collapsing. Every bathroom in the house exploded into chaos, doors banging, flushes rapid fire, desperation echoing off the walls. I stayed perfectly calm, smiling. Dialing 911 like I was reporting a weather update. The ambulance arrived fast, lights slicing across my driveway. They rushed my parents out on stretchers. Blake and Courtney followed in the SUV, Courtney hanging halfway out the window like a seasick parrot. By 9 a.m. the house was silent again. Finally. But I wasn't done. Upstairs in their room, Blake's leather weekender sat open, a black hole of secrets. One folder tucked under his shirts held more betrayal than any poison tea ever could. Photographs my house from every angle, day, night, drone shots, even through windows. 18 months back. Then, a notarized power of attorney, giving Blake legal control to sell my house. Mom and Dad's signatures, 3 months earlier. My hands shook, but I kept digging. A spreadsheet. 27 elderly owners, 27 houses, all gone. Row 28, J. Coldwell in progress. He'd done this before, he'd do it again, unless someone stopped him. I called the name scribbled on a card inside that file, Melissa Coleman. She answered with a bitter laugh. You found the folder, didn't you? She had the proof, the heartbreak, the police reports, the foreclosure documents, all emailed within minutes. Another name, Margaret Ellison, 82 years old, wiped clean by Blake's promises, living now with one suitcase in a government nursing home. I scanned everything, locked the originals in my safe, sent copies to my lawyer marked urgent, fraud. Then I stood in the middle of my stolen-back living room, trembling with a truth that tasted worse than any detox tea. My own family sold me out. The ones I paid for, the ones I saved, the ones I loved. They didn't come to visit, they came to stay, they came to take. And they would have succeeded, if not for one breakfast. By sunset, the doorbell rang again. But this time it wasn't thieves. It was Travis, my older brother, storming inside, still wearing work boots, fury burning in his eyes. Mom says you tried to kill everyone with poison tea, he barked. Start talking. I pointed to my laptop. Sit, watch. I showed him everything, the photos, the signatures, the texts between Blake and Mom. Just sign, Joanne will never know until it's done. Mom replied. She has too much anyway, she won't miss it. Travis went dead silent. I played the audio recording from Mom's phone backup, her voice cold and confident. After the sale, we split 50-50, she doesn't need all that space. Travis's heart broke right in front of me, same parents, same betrayal. He whispered, this is criminal, federal criminal. I nodded. Melissa, Margaret, proof, paper trails, victims. That was all he needed. He snatched my phone, dialed the sheriff on speaker. Within an hour, 2 deputies and a detective stood in my living room, reviewing every piece of evidence. This is enough for a warrant, the detective said. Do not touch that folder again. Travis and I waited side by side, adrenaline flooding every vein. Then headlights sliced across the windows. 2 more squad cars pulling up. The detective stepped forward. Warrant granted. We followed them upstairs. Curtains blowing, moonlight shifting shadows. The room that was supposed to be mine, invaded, now turning into the scene of a crime about to collapse. Evidence bag opened, gloves snapped on. The detective carefully lifted the folder, the same one Blake probably thought he'd return to quietly after ruining my life. Not tonight. He planned to use you like the rest, the detective said coldly, but he made one mistake. What's that? I asked. He underestimated the wrong woman. Travis put his arm around my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I let someone hold part of the weight. Downstairs, the ocean hammered the shore like applause. Justice, or something dangerously close to it, was finally awake. And when they all walk back through that door tomorrow, the house they thought they could claim will no longer welcome them. Because this time, I'm not the one who's leaving. They are, and I swear on every inch of oceanfront I own. No one will ever take this from me again.